Welcome to the second video on how to use and navigate through the Emergency Nutrition Assessment software, the ENA software in short. So when you first open up the ENA software, this will be the home page that you see, which is the data entry for anthropometry page. You will see on the top there are various tabs that you can select. The first one being planning, training, data entry anthropometry, results of anthropometry, death rates, food security, and then there's other options. So what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at the data entry anthropometry tab mostly, but I just want to point out that this planning nutrition survey tool is very useful if you're doing a cluster randomized control or survey, cluster randomized survey, and it has a random number generating table. It can help calculate sample sizes for random sampling or cluster sampling. You can put in the average household size, the estimated prevalence, and so on, so that you can get a sample size that is necessary for anthropometry surveys. You can also do sample size calculation for a death rate survey, but I think the top one for anthropometric surveys are probably going to be the one that we use the most. You can also put in the geographical unit and the population size and the cluster numbers, which then can help to generate the random cluster selection. And then also it gives you reserve clusters, which is very helpful. The training tab can be used when you're doing enumerator trainings. I haven't used it much because I like to use the World Vision Measuring Child Growth tool, which has exercise sheets in there for actual tools. But if you want to enter in the data, then you can use this as well. So moving on to the data entry anthropometry tab, the very first column that you will see here is the survey date. You'll then see cluster, so we can expand these. Team number, ID number, household number, the gender, date of birth for the child. This is the age in months, which is usually calculated automatically if you put in the date of birth and the survey date. And then the weight, height, edema, yes or no, and then the MUAC information. For us, because we will be collecting a lot of or all this data using our caregiver survey tools or ODK, what we can do is generate the report from ODK to Excel. And when we generate our report in Excel, it probably will look something like this. So this is just a sample data set that I took from one of the evaluations that we conducted. And you will see that the date submission is in the format of year, month, and then day. If you go back to the survey date here, it's in year, month, day format. So we need to make sure, first of all, that this year, month, day format is the same as what you have on your computer. If it's not, I would try to change the format on the computer if you can. And then you go to your Excel spreadsheet, and I would use the date, if you have in your survey, the date of when the measuring or when the data collection took place. So here we have the interview date. So this is probably the date that we want to use. So what I do is I select all the data that we have collected for that column, and then I click the right button, the right mouse button. You right click your mouse, and then you go to the format cells, and I go to date, and I change it to this format, year, month, day. So I click OK, and then it should give us this same format. Then what I do is I copy, and then I go back to the ENA software, and I click on Control V. I don't think, oh, here. There's also a paste button. So let's try pressing the paste button. And you click yes, and then it should copy and paste everything into here. So we will see the entry for 600 entries. So if I go back to the sample data, I'll just cross-check to make sure that it's 600 data entries. So the very top row was for headings. So 601 minus 1 is 600, so we are good. Then the next column in the ENA software is the cluster number. So if you don't have a cluster number, you can give whatever sampling or the village number, or you can put whatever identification number for the different areas. So it can be division that you want to track by here. And so for our sample data, I believe we have cluster number. So I am going to take the cluster number column and copy that. So I'm going to do Control C to copy, and then I will paste it here with Control V, click yes, and then it gets pasted. For team, you can put the enumerator team, or you can put the enumerator number. So for the sample data that I have here, I believe it was the enumerator number. So I'm going to put the enumerator's number here. Control C again, and then Control V, click yes. We will worry about these yellow flags later, or the purple flags later, the purple cells. For ID, this is I believe it's the ID number of the enumerators if you have teams. So actually we can probably put the enumerator number here too. Yeah, maybe for the teams we could just put blank if you don't have teams. If you have pairs, you can put the pair numbers here. This is important when you do the possibility check because you can track which team or which enumerator has a digit preference or is not collecting the data very accurately. It'll look at precision, accuracy, all of that. So it's actually important to enter in the ID numbers and the team numbers if you have teams. I don't believe we had teams as a column here. I think we didn't have it because we assigned teams to different clusters. Yeah, so we would probably leave that one blank. The next column is household number. Let me open this. So we have household number here, which I am going to copy. Control C. And then Control V. When you paste the Excel spreadsheet cells into the ENA software, always make sure that you're starting from the top and you're not pasting from like halfway down the page, because then your data will get, it won't be accurate across the rows. So I like to double check sometimes to make sure that the data ends all at the same row and it's not off. That's just one way of double checking that you are doing the copy and pasting accurately. Because if you do the copy and pasting inaccurately, then you're just going to have completely incorrect output and data. So we don't want to do that. Okay, so the next thing that we need to see or paste is the gender of the child. So we have the gender of the child here. I don't know about the ODK survey that you have designed for your country or for this specific survey that you're doing or evaluation, but it's good to put it as male or female, M or F, so that you don't have to change these. But let's say that it is in ones and twos, and you know that 1 is male, 2 is female, then what I like to do is I like to select this column. You can either select or you can either create a new column, which is probably the wiser thing to do, and I'll call this child sex MF. And so I'll select all of this. And I will press Control F. And I'll say replace 1 with M. And I'll press replace all. And so it says we have made 306 replacements. So it's only changing the ones here to male and male within this column. So we click OK. And then 2, we press female. Then we can say replace all. And it says 293 replacements. So we can take this control and then paste it in here. We could then copy this column and paste it into our ENA software. Paste. So we don't have to do this if our output from the ODK survey already was in male and female, right? But it was in numbers rather than letters, so we had to change that. Then date of birth is here. And once again, it's not in the correct date format. So I will have to change that. Control or select and the format cell. Click date and then year, month, day, format. Changed, and then you can press Control C and then Control V. And then you can see that it calculates the age in months automatically. And then we need the weight data. Which is here. So I'm going to select this. Control C. And then Control V. And then the height. Which is here in column PI. I'm going to select all that. And then I will copy. And then I will paste. Okay. And then for edema, it's supposed to be a yes or a no. So it's supposed to be a Y or it's supposed to be an N. Okay. So I am going to go back to our sample data and in edema sign. So 0 means no. So once again, I'm going to select this entire column of data. And I'm going to do Control F, go to replace. It's 0, it is N. Okay, okay. And then if it's 1, then it's a Y. Okay. We close, Control C, and then we go back to the ENA software, and then we paste it. Okay. We did not collect the MUAC data for this survey, for the sample data, so I'm not going to put the MUAC data right now. The plausibility check report, it's able to generate a report for us that we can analyze with a score if we have the weight, height information. I believe we don't need edema information. We just need the weight and height, and of course, date of birth and gender. But if you have edema and MUAC information, that's great. Also, another thing to select and make sure you're selecting is the WHO Standards 2006 rather than the NCHS reference, because this is the old growth charts. We want to use the new WHO standard growth charts. I believe that is all for our data copy and pasting from the Excel spreadsheet over to our data entry in the ENA software. I will go now into these purple cells. So I believe that, okay, first of all, purple cells mean that the data is flagged for that specific cell. So this child, for example, child number 9, household number 91, or child number 6, does not have weight and height information. So that's why it's 0. So let me go back to our sample data. Make sure that it was not there. Yep. it says 0, and this one also says 0. I think that may have been the only child. So if that is the case, then what I would do is, so we want to be doing this every day as we collect data. We want to take the data from that day and copy and paste all the information into the ENA software. If we see any data that's flagged like this, then we need to inform that specific enumerator and make sure that they go back to that household and re-weigh and measure the height the next day. Either the measurement wasn't recorded properly, and if I always like to ask the enumerators to write it down in their notebook, even though they enter it into the phones, because sometimes it doesn't save for some reason, and then that enumerator has to go all the way back to the house. So let's say this is blank, it didn't save in ODK, then we can go back to that specific enumerator and we can ask that enumerator to check their notebook. We can enter in the data that may be missing. If they don't have it in their books, then obviously they'll have to go back to that household and re-weigh the child and re-measure the height. Okay. Let's continue to scroll down and see what else. Okay, so here, this is another good example. So there's another flagging here. Clearly, a child cannot weigh 75.2 kgs, especially if the child is only 15.5 months old, and a child cannot be 11.7 inches tall. So one thing that we can see here is most likely the enumerator switched the numbers. The person put the height information into the weight and the weight information into the height. Of course, it would be easy for us to just switch it ourselves, but I would always double check with the enumerator to make sure that for this specific child, let's say household number 26, was this child actually 11.7 kgs? Was this child actually 75.2 centimeters tall? Let's say we verified and it's true, then we can switch it. So this would be 11.7. And this would be 75.2. Okay, so we can correct that. Continue to go down. Okay, so here is another flagging. The height information for child number 78, it says the child is 188.7 centimeters tall. This is clearly a mistake. This is not possible. So I would double check with this enumerator number 15, and ask them to double check the height information for household number 73. Once again, here for child number 80 or household number 4, the height information looks inaccurate. A child cannot be 7 centimeters tall. So I would ask the enumerator to double check in his or her notebook. So this software is really helpful, even after you've just copy and pasted, to go through the flags. So once again here, the height 205.2 centimeters, which is impossible. It's over 6 feet tall for a 54-month-old child. So this is really helpful. Once again, I think the height and weight information is switched here. So I will switch that. Okay. Here, you'll see that the month is highlighted or flagged. This is because the child is under 6 months of age. And so most times we don't weigh children, or we don't include children that are less than 6 months of age, but I will show you how we can change that. So here, it's still flagged. Let me see if, yeah. So this was still flagged because it's at only 72. So if it's 72, I think it was flagged because it didn't have a decimal place. We always want our data in the Excel spreadsheet to have one decimal place. For all our enumerators, when they collect data, even if it's 10 centimeters, they have to put 10.0. So it has to be precise to the 0.1 decimal place. Let's continue to go down. Okay, so here's another flag. Here's another flag. So as you go down all this data, like right now, we're going through 600 children because we're looking at the data quality after 1 week's worth of data collection. But for you, you should be collecting the data and analyzing the data quality every day after you have collected data. So you won't have to go through 600 rows of data. It'll just be for 1 day's worth of data. So it shouldn't take very long. Okay, I'm just gonna go through a little faster. Okay, I don't think there are any other. Okay, so null. This is just Excel spreadsheet way of saying that there's no data, right? So what we could do is we can leave it blank. So if this is the case, we need to probably follow up with this household and see why all this information was missing. Most likely it didn't save properly. So it's very important to have the enumerators to also write the data in their notebooks every day. Okay. Now for the team number, the reason why the team number is selected is because I think by default, we have indicated that there's only 20 teams. So because there's more than 20, like more than number 20, so 21 and higher numbers in this column, that's why it's flagging. So we can go to the results anthropometry tab. And this will give us a general summary of the results of our anthro data. Okay. And this will be covered in our third video by Stephen. And the plausibility report, you just have to select this. So I hope that was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can contact me over Skype or email or even Teams, and then we can do some troubleshooting. Thank you.